All right, this is my first time doing a TikTok live, so I have no idea really what I'm doing. But if you guys have any specific questions, would love to answer them. I'm not really... Is this like the same? I don't know if this is the same as like Instagram Live. Let's see. Okay. It looks like it's the same. All right. Seeing some comments. I've gotten a ton of questions, I think mostly on my Instagram, but about the lockout. So, let's see. Anyways, I guess just to start about the lockout, I don't know if you guys have any specific questions about it, but just an update that right now there are like no negotiations going on. So it's kind of to be expected, to be honest, but that's kind of where things are at. But at any time they can start negotiating and talk, but it's like, two sides that very much dislike each other. Let's see. Would I ever consider becoming an agent for other sports? Yeah. Generally, agents specialize like in a certain sport because there are so many nuances to the individual sports and the contracts and the way they're structured. But I definitely want to branch out and have at least Luba sports have different divisions. I don't know if I would specifically do other sports, but I would want to bring on other agents to do other divisions of Luba sports. It's your friend Nathan's birthday. Happy birthday, Nathan. Hope you had a great one. Why baseball specifically over other sports? It's a good question. I talk about it a lot, but basically the short story is they tell you, you should always talk to people. If you think you know what you want to do, talk to people in the industry. So I thought about, okay, being an agent, I knew I wanted to work with like the individual athletes themselves. So the first, like some of my friends were UCLA baseball players. So they were, I asked them like, hey, can you connect me with your agent? Like I'd love to set up a meeting and just pick their brain. So the first agent I happened to talk to was a baseball agent. He sat me down on his desk or like in his office, put his feet up on his desk, like leaned back. He was like, seems like you know what you want to do, so I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And he's like, you're a girl. I was like, yep, well aware. And I was like, is that it? And he's like, well, what I'm saying is you're not really welcome in the industry. So at that point, I was really turned off by the whole conversation. And I was like, okay. And he's like, look, I'm not saying you can't do it. It's just the reality. It's a boys' club. So if I have any advice for you, it's like, you better get a law degree if you want any credibility or any chance of credibility. But yeah. So I walked out of there and I was like, okay, baseball it is. I say this all the time, but I credit him to being the reason I chose baseball, because if he told me like, yeah, it's great, here are some different avenues you can take to break into the industry, I honestly probably would have walked out of there and been like, okay, awesome. Like now I'm going to go talk to a football agent, or now I'm going to go talk to, a basketball agent. But that is why. Happy birthday, Jose Luis. How do I pick my players when I'm an agent? A lot of times it's just like if you vibe with the player to start with, they kind of have to have, they've got to, buy into the methodology that I use. I have to feel like that there's trust there, and, they've got to trust me as well. And then also like, for me, because of my fee structure, I don't just, like a lot of agencies operate more like puppy mills or like player mills. And they will, take on a ton of clients and then not really service them. I tend to be a lot more selective because I don't want players to feel like they're getting a bad experience with their agent or they can never get a hold of them, because I've seen that happen many times. Hockey is the other sport that does salary, or they do have salary arbitration. It's very different. Maybe one day I'll do like a comparison, but I love hockey, and I think that would be a fun one. Correct. No contact right now between agents and teams. Have I ever had a player or a potential client hit on me? And how do I deal with it? Yes, I think it's like very important, and I try to make it very clear from the get-go that this is a professional relationship, a business relationship, and I take my job seriously, and I have to feel like there is that respect there. And I've found that when I make that clear, it's usually respected. When do I think, you never know with baseball, but I think at the end of the day, when games start to become in jeopardy, or, we're in jeopardy of losing games, I think something is going to get done. But what's going to happen is, I think MLB is just going to basically say, okay, because at this point, here's what they did. The status quo for baseball right now is fantastic. They love it. Baseball doesn't want to change it. The owners are very happy. The players, on the other hand, are not happy. And that's understandable because, the landscape of baseball, whether it be analytics, whether it be the financials behind, what the owners are making, it's all changed over the last, 10, 15 years drastically. But what hasn't changed in like 40 years or whatever is the CBA. So it has to evolve too with the changing of the landscape of baseball in general. It hasn't. So players are unhappy. Baseball looked at it as, okay, from a negotiation standpoint, they just said, here, you guys want change? Here's change. Let's do something drastically different. And it's absurd what they proposed. They knew players would look at that and be like, okay, well, no, hell no. I don't want this. Like, that's horrible. And so they propose this extreme, right? And then what's going to happen is I think at the end, they're going to come back to the table and MLB will say, fine, look, we'll give you these, what if we just give you these 3 or 4 little meaningless, basically, things that you're asking for. It won't be a big change, right? We'll basically stick with what we have right now, and we'll give you a few little bones. We'll toss you a few bones, but meaningless things. And the players, I think the union is going to look at it as, that's a win. We avoided this huge drastic change, which MLB didn't want that either. But it'll look like, in a way, a win for the players, or they'll try to make it seem like that. But ultimately, nothing will really change. So that's what I think is going to happen. I hope it's not, but it's tough because MLB has been playing this long game. They've been playing chess for a long time, many CBA negotiations, and the players the player side has just been playing defense. I don't think they've had as much foresight, and what's happened is, I think it's unfortunate. I think a lot of times, not everyone at the union, but I think there's some people that think players are not that intelligent, and that if they just tell them, look, quantity over quality, we got you these things that mean nothing, they think it'll look good to players and players will be happy, but that's not smart, not in the long run. So yes, Trevor Bauer is still on the Dodgers. Is this his defining moment as a commissioner, Rob Manfred? I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting to see what his legacy is. I do think it's kind of ridiculous, though, that Ken Rosenthal was let go for essentially criticizing the man. look, I have my feelings towards Ken Rosenthal, and do I think, he's the world's greatest reporter and that he's accurate and tells the facts all the time? No. But I do think it is telling that somebody or anybody who basically criticizes or speaks out against Rob Manfred, that basically Rob Manfred will make sure that you're done. And I think that's concerning for a lot of people. So something that I think keep in mind or keep an eye on. Let's see. Do I think the lockout will be over before spring training or will end? I think it might cut into it a little bit. Made him come off a little dictator-ish at a time when he's trying to win the people. Yeah, he's not so great at winning the people. Am I right? I've got, what's up, Kevin? Hi, guys. Yeah, as a commissioner, you should know you're going to get criticized, especially when, I don't think you always do things in the best interest of the fans, which is understandable in a sense. Like, I wouldn't operate that way, but like, he's working on behalf of owners, and a lot of times owners are businessmen that can be out of touch with, they're looking at the business, the financials, and it's not always like in line with what fans want. And so, he chose to operate to just solely please the owners in the short term. And I don't think it's smart in the long term, but let's see. What other? Yeah. Do agents put pressure on clients to come to an agreement the longer the lockout goes? There are some, because it's going to affect agents. I think, everyone, I guess agents a lot of times have maybe different interests in it, depending on who their clients are, and how it'll affect them, which will ultimately affect the agent. I think you've got, you look at guys like, if you've got Boris, who is representing, the top guys really, and not much of the middle class guys. The biggest problem with baseball, or with the CBA right now, with baseball, and where the players are hoping to see change, is with the middle class. The middle class is being squeezed out. I know can be confusing because you see the top of the market guys, their salaries are constantly going up, but as a result too, or in turn, the middle class, they're also losing jobs, they're being squeezed out. So I think there are agents that who represent a lot of the middle class that are going to be pushing hard for change. So I think it's interesting. Let's see, the Max Scherzer contract. I think it's a great contract. And let me explain. It's funny because, so a lot of people who, they read what I wrote, my comments on the Max Scherzer deal, and they were confused. And I think they demonstrated kind of their lack of an in-depth understanding of how these contracts are negotiated. So let's talk about the age thing. The fact that Max Scherzer is 37 simply off the bat just ensures that he will not get a 10-year deal. Off the bat, we know that. Now, we know we can check one thing off our list. There's no way he's getting a long-term deal. So now we have a guy who is at the top of the market, who is going to do a short-term deal. How do you value him? Well, when it comes to short-term deals, age doesn't matter really anymore, because we're looking at this year and the next year, right? So if he's at the top of the market right now, it doesn't matter what his age is. He's at the top of the market. The only way age would affect that is if, he's trying, if he's basically, if he's not good because of his age, then he won't be at the top of the market. But like the age isn't playing into it because he's already at the top of the market. So he wants to do a short-term deal. And now he has to look back. Now, this is how every single agent negotiates a contract. Especially the guys at the top of the market, they take the highest contract that exists right now, and they say, I want to do that plus a little, add a little. Who do you think? Cole, like Strasburg, look to Greinke's contract or whatever. You've got Cole, look to Strasburg's contract, and you just always like, let me do that contract plus some. So the difficult part with what Bauer wanted was he wanted a short-term deal. So whose contract do you think he looked at? I mean, sure, we looked at the highest contract right now was Cole at $36 million. I mean, sure, we looked at the highest contract right now was Cole at $36 million. But Trevor's not asking for 9 years. So whose contract did we look at? Well, no one's really. We had to create a whole new market to base. I mean, we used numbers like Cole, etc., developed an algorithm to then show, okay, but based on 1 year, what's his worth? Once we established that, once we were able to secure a player who is on a short-term deal at the top of the market, you know, in the 40 plus range, then you take guys like Scherzer, right? The following year, he knows he doesn't get a choice like Bauer. He doesn't get a choice to say, do I want a long-term or short-term deal like Bauer did? And Bauer chose short-term. He simply says, I don't have a choice. I have to do short-term. So whose contract am I going to look at? Did he look at Cole's? I mean, doubt it, because he was able to point to a guy just the season before who negotiated a short-term deal, who was coming off a Cy Young win and already had secured a contract that over 2 years guaranteed him 42.5. So what did Boris do with Scherzer? He said, I want to beat Bauer. I want 43 over 2 years or over 3 years. That's what I want. It's simple. He just built off Bauer's. So that's what happened. Scherzer also literally admitted that in his press conference. He was like, I'm not, naive to the fact that I got my contract because of players before me. But people seem to be like confused at, you can't compare him because he's his age. Like, then you don't understand how it works. But I also don't expect people to. I just think it's funny when they act so sure that they know how this works. So anyways, that's the Scherzer deal, but it's a great deal. Boris did a great job. I think it's awesome. We keep pushing the market. Fantastic. Do you realize charging clients per hour was a better option than the percent contract? I think, sure, sometimes do I think about the percentage I could have taken on a contract? Sure. But do I think it is overall in the best interest for the client? Yeah. And isn't my job as an agent to represent or to do what's in the best interest of players? Yes. So I think my way is going to be a better option in the future. My thoughts on the Ken Rosenthal situation, and we just talked about it a little bit, but I think it's concerning that that we're seeing this precedent where if you criticize the man, then basically he will make sure you never play or do something again or work in the industry in a way. I think that's frightening. Why is your IG so red? Not hating, just curious. It kind of just became my brand or a color that was associated with me because I had red hair when I kind of stepped on the baseball scene. Fun fact, my natural hair color is blonde. I used to change my hair color. Anyone who has known me for a long time, about every 6 weeks I had a different hair color. I happened to have red hair when I launched my agency, and it like stuck, and then I kind of just kept it. So it's Reds become a thing. Let's see. Is Power willing to come back to Cleveland? I'm not sure. You would have to ask him. What do I think about the Robbie Ray and Corey Seager contracts? I, don't really have a huge opinion on them. I haven't paid too much attention to their contracts specifically. Why did I choose UCLA other than gymnastics? No, I'm not, but I'm from Northern California. I always dreamed of being in LA. I fantasized about living in LA, and they have one of the best gymnastics teams in the country. So that was a dream school, and got in and decided, that's where I was going to go. It's also a great school. And another fun fact, my brother, Jake, he had when he had his brain surgery, part of his brain taken out when he was 2 years old. He had it at UCLA Medical Center, and he was one of the first 50 in the world to have that surgery. So UCLA's always kind of had a special place in my heart. So happy I'm a Dodgers fan and not a Giants fan anymore. First of all, I will always be a Giants fan at heart, but then I root for players, not teams. So, it's fluid. My best piece of advice for someone who wants to become an agent, I'm going to make some TikToks about these, but my advice is find some way to be unique, to stand out, to add value to an agency. And that kind of it usually ends up meaning that doing the sports management major, no hate toward, anyone who's doing that as a major, it's okay. But everything that you learn as a sports management major or whatever in college, you're going to learn that on the job. You need to come to the table basically offering value off the bat, because the reality is everybody and their mom wants to work in sports now. Everybody loves baseball. Everyone loves sports. So you have to find a way to set yourself apart. Sometimes it's learning another language. Sometimes it's being able to code. It's something that look at all the other agents and then find what is something that probably all of them don't really know or aren't great at that could be valuable to an agent. And that's what you should focus on. I kind of did, one, Spanish, two, the salary arbitration, the expertise that I got in salary arbitration was a huge distinguisher. It really set me apart. So, that was a way that I was able to kind of do that. You have a law degree. No, you do not have to have a law degree to become an agent in baseball. So baseball is actually one of the few, it is the easiest league to become an agent in. Football is the hardest. NFL, you need to have a master's degree of some kind, whether it be just a league to become an agent in. Football is the hardest. NFL, you need to have a master's degree of some kind, whether it be just a postgraduate degree or a law degree. A lot of them are lawyers, but the reason is what happened was the NFL, a lot of players were being taken advantage of by agents. And so this was some, protective measures that were put in place. I think NBA and NHL NBA is just a college degree. I think NHL is just an associate's degree, so maybe a 2-year kind of college. And baseball, you just need to graduate high school. So, the 30 are my Lubanati fans. Yes, I love my Lubanati. You guys rock. I was just hoping, I know I get a lot of questions, in my DMs and stuff. And so this was the easiest way to just kind of chat. Let's see. Sorry, I'm like trying to read these. Can players go? No, so players who are under contract, right? They're still under contract. So even though they can't play, their contracts are still if they can't go play somewhere else. Let's see. All right, we got like 5 more minutes, but is this like helpful for you guys? For me to answer questions this way. Sometimes I do it, on Instagram, but how is my commission different from typical percentage? So I charge I have like a flat fee, and then I essentially just charge hourly. So I charge like how a lawyer charges, and lawyers do just fine. I know some people were commenting, they're like, so basically you work for free. I don't think anyone thinks a lawyer works for free. I charge billable hours. I have an hourly rate, and so the amount of work that I do for a client, they pay me for. When I do, there are players I do a lot of work for. I done a ton of work this year for Bauer. And then there are others that are, maybe a lot less high maintenance, and I do less work for, and they don't have to pay me as much. Which I think makes a whole lot of sense given the fact that they're the ones who have they're earning their contract, their value on the field, these teams now are all using analytics and pretty much they're earning their contract, their value on the field, these teams now are all using analytics and pretty much spitting out the same value across the board because it's math and numbers don't lie. So, the agent, it's much less of an art, much more of a science now. And the agents are sure facilitating it, but they're not creating the value. They might be getting creative with ways that they structure the contract, etc., which, I think we demonstrated with Bauer's contract. And that's why, I get paid for negotiating the contract. But to get a percentage of the value of Trevor's contract that he created for himself seems crazy, because I'm using the same skills then to negotiate the $1 million contract. It's the same skill set in a sense, on my part. Let's see. It's the same skill set in a sense, on my part. Let's see. I should do a podcast. I had Corked Up, and then it got really difficult with Jess's schedule with NBC, Bay Area, and then my schedule. It got difficult, but, do I think GMs or owners treated me differently because I'm a female agent? I don't really think so, but it was, it's interesting because a lot of my interaction was, when I first started, most agents don't start out with an incredibly high profile client like Bauer, who is on the open market. So I think they had to treat me well in the beginning, if they wanted to get the player. So it's hard to say. Maybe I think it would have been different if I started out like most do, with lower down players that you're trying to sell and, pitch to different teams. But I think all the front office people, are pretty respectful. I think it's usually the online people and the other agents who I've learned maybe are just threatened, who seem to be most disrespectful. Do I feel I get the same respect from those in the industry as a male? No. I feel especially when it comes to the media and the way that I am perceived, I feel I'm expected to behave differently than a male agent. I'm expected to answer to a separate set of questions. I'm expected to handle situations that agents deal with all the time. I'm expected to handle them differently because I'm a female, and that really irritates me because I've been asked to be treated differently. But you know, I think overall, like, players are, you know, they still show me the same level of respect. Yeah, Twitter is the absolute worst. That's why I'm gonna start being on here more, because I'm over it. Anyways, all right, guys. I'll wrap it up here, but I will try to come back on soon and answer more questions for you guys. Make sure to, I guess, follow me here on TikTok, and yeah, we'll do this again. But hope you guys all had a happy New Year. I don't know how to end it. How do I end this? Do you guys know? Am I an idiot?